Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. This is Marae, all the way from Australia, and you know me as the Greatness Engineer. We are going to the US now. We were in India an hour ago. Now we're going to the US, and we're going to talk about, sport, and sport media and sport today. And we have a trailblazer with us today. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. And just want to let you know that this show is actually co-sponsored by She Exists. She Exists has been a partner with us here, the Mirai Tulekima Global Leadership Organization, on this show. And we are partnering today on the show. And you're probably going to ask me, who is our guest today? So our guest is Kelsey Nicole Nelson, and she will be with us for at least an hour of greatness. We will discover her. She's, like I said, trailblazing in the sport industry, making waves, and she'll have the opportunity to introduce herself. She is, doing some great things, and I know that you're going to enjoy this particular episode. So just let us know where you're watching from, and don't hesitate to really, just be part of the conversation and get to discover what, Kelsey is all about. And also, to get your pen, paper, because I know she's going to share a lot. And our objective here is for you to be able to get some tips, some tips for your success, but most importantly for you to go to the next level of your greatness. So let's start this show. Let's bring Kelsey with us today. She's tight, and then we're gonna have her with us. Another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Mirai Tulekima Global Leadership Organization.
Real is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily actions.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
Don't deprive the world of your greatness. Please. Don't do that anymore. Dare to excel, dare to be sexy, dare to be you, dare to be the best version of yourself. Impact yourself positively, and from there impact others, and you are not alone.
So welcome, Kelsey, to the Greatness Engineering Talk Show. It is a pleasure to have you here, and I'm really, excited about having you here. So just before the excitement goes too far, just want you to introduce yourself to the audience and let us know who you are, and what are the key things that we need to know about you.
Well, thank you again so much for having me. Good morning to everyone here on the East Coast and the U.S. I'm based in Washington, D.C. But to briefly introduce myself, my name is Kelsey Nicole Nelson, a woman that can never be placed in a box. I do many, many different things. I'm a professor by morning time. I am a nonprofit communications leader by day, as well as a broadcaster, host, and sports reporter, which is what most people know me for. So covering all things sports here in D.C. and also nationally as well as internationally. So folks in Australia, you never know when you might see me there as well. And I'm also a multi-business owner. So I've also ventured into the entrepreneurship lane, which has been amazing for me, and so thankful for that. And then also I just say I'm a community advocate. I do a lot with mentorship here and young people, and it's really giving back to the community and the village, which has poured so much into me. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit everywhere. I guess I also do public and motivational speaking as well. I just like to connect with people. I'm a storyteller and a connector. So all things people, all things sports, and just all things good in the world I like to be part of.
Fantastic. Thank you and welcome again. And I can see you have support here. Okay, and in the house, we have Robert here. Robert joining and supporting you from the US. And I just wanted to ask you, Kelsey, so how do you do it? Because, you're doing quite a lot of things, and doing it very well. So what is the secret? What are the key things that you do that, help you to actually be able to manage all of this and integrate everything without going crazy, if I can say that?
You can't tell I'm not crazy. No. And something that you said, I don't just like to do a lot of things. I like to do a lot of things well. And that's very important. Don't just do 100 things and 50 of them are bad. If you do 100 things, I want 100 of those things to be good. I think for me, what I always say is, use your platform for a purpose fueled by your passion. And that's kind of why I'm able to do so many things. I've been given an amazing platform. God has led me on this journey to be in front of people, all the time with what I do in my career. And because of that, it's connected me and opened so many doors that, I'm so thankful for. I've also had so many amazing supporters, that have also helped me to get where I am today. And so the biggest thing is time management, right? Like I'm a person that I live by my calendar. So like if anybody that knows me, if you're ever scheduling anything with me, I'm going to ask you, send me a calendar invite. Because if it's not in my calendar, it's not going to happen. But then also I have to make sure, and what I've really been learning to do is I also have to schedule break time, which is me time. And that's time where I can just reconnect with myself. I'm unbothered. I put my phone on do not disturb. I go outside for a walk sometimes, or, whether it's just putting my AirPods in and listening to music. So I think it's also having that balance. But again, everything that I do, I love it. And when you have a passion for something, you make time for it. I think that's been the biggest thing, right? So I start my mornings early. I'm usually up 4 or 5 a.m. each day. On days that I teach classes, I have the first class in the morning. I teach 8 a.m. classes, right? Because I like to early gets the worm. And the next thing I know, I'm onto my nonprofit work and I'm watching everything happening in sports and I'm answering my student emails, right? So I know how to multitask very well. And I also know how to prioritize. And then I usually, of course, end my day usually with some type of event, right? There's always something happening that I need to be at, either speaking at or supporting. And then at nighttime, look, I'm regrouping. I'm getting ready for the next day, but I'm also recapping everything I learned in that day. So that's kind of what my day looks like, but I can't tell you enough. You have to find whatever system works best for you. And what I do, my crazy and my chaos is my calm, because this has been my life, my entire life. I've always been busy. I've always been juggling multiple things. So that everybody else, they're like, how in the world is Kelsey doing that? Where for me, and when I'm not doing a lot of things is when I actually get anxious. Like, I'm like, why am I sitting here? Like, well, there's something I need to be doing. And so for me, when I have all these different things going on, that's when I find my peace, because that's when I'm like, I know I'm doing something that's purposeful, that's meaningful, and that's going to give back to someone or something. And so that's kind of just brought me lots of joy. I'm very big into Black girl joy each and every day. I'm usually a smiler. I'm always happy. I'm blessed that I'm here. But again, the biggest thing, you have to find the best way to manage your time and know that what works for you might not work for somebody else. Right? Each of us are individual and unique, but just find things that bring you joy, and it'll never be tiring, and you'll never complain about it.
Fantastic. And I really like what you're saying is that, we have to find a system that works for us.
Yeah,
There's something that can work for you, but it might not work for me. So we
right.
really have to find this one thing that we like to do and we love and find a system around it to be able to integrate everything that we have to juggle, in
Exactly.
a and then that's very important. One thing that I'm really curious about, because media, especially sport media in the
Yeah,
US, is male dominated, and I just
yeah.
want to know what's the story, how did you manage to get into it, and what have been the challenges, and also the good thing that you basically encounter in that particular industry.
Yeah, I love all things sports media. And, honestly, my journey began with my parents. So my mom and my dad, who told me from a very, very early age, block out the noise. Do not let anybody tell you what you can't do. We're the only two that will tell you things that you shouldn't be doing as a child and anything else. But, they always instilled a sense of belief in me. Confidence was instilled in me very early as well. And so to me, when I was a young child, I mean, if somebody told me I couldn't do it, I wanted to do it, right? Because I had my parents in my head. And so I'm also a daddy's girl. My dad, he made me tough early, right? So things that people said, they just bounce off me, and I was competing early. I was an athlete early. And I just love sports. I love the thrill of the game. To me, there's no other place and no other thing that you could be doing when you're around so many people. And for those couple of hours, they're rooting for something. There's joy,
Mm-hmm.
happiness. That's what a sporting event does. I still remember my first professional game that I ever went to. I didn't want to leave. I had to be dragged.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
loved everything about it, being next to people that were shouting and yelling and, we're cheersing each other. That's what made me feel just comfortable. And I think in life, you
Mm-hmm.
have to find whatever makes you feel comfortable. And that to me made it feel like home. But yes, it's had its challenges, right? I mean, obviously, when I step into a room, the first thing people see is a Black woman. That's every
Mm-hmm.
that I step into. And I own that and I love that. But I understand that not everybody owns and not everybody loves that, right? And there's so many things that you have to fight with, when you're a Black woman, right? You're fighting sexism, you're fighting racism, and you're fighting people that always think that you shouldn't be in the room. There's people that like that all
Exactly.
the time. And so I think for me, I learned early on that I've always been an underdog, from the time I came out my mother's womb and honestly, probably till the time I leave this earth. And because I've always had that mindset, it always has made me want to work hard, right? So I've always had this
Mm-hmm.
work ethic. And I think that's really helped to propel my career. Like I'm always working. If anybody that follows me or knows me knows Kelsey's always on. I'm always on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think I've had to realize that every no that I've had in life, it's not personal to me. That wasn't the opportunity that God meant for me. And so what I've learned to do is every no that I've had, I turn those letters around and I say that means God is putting me on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting me on to a new opportunity. He's putting me on to a new event, a new career field. And I think that's what's kind of blessed me. But I think the biggest thing that you can do as a woman is one, know yourself, know your talent, know your skills. And when you know yourself, when you love yourself, you can genuinely be loved and accepted by others, right? Because it's hard to do that if you don't know yourself or love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that means when you walk in a room, you're covered and protected. So no matter what people say to you, it doesn't matter, right? You know you're supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be in that room. You know you've worked to be in that place. And if anything, I actually own sometimes being the only one because I know then that makes people curious. And then I also know that
Mm-hmm.
I have a responsibility that I carry to not only make sure that I'm in that room, but to make sure that other women and other people like me can get in that room. And so, yes, there's been times, where people say, what is she doing here? Or, she's not supposed to be here and things like that. But, it doesn't bother me because I'm still standing next to you. My name is on that credential too. My name is on that media table as well. And I'm going to do the best job I can. Right. And I know I
Mm-hmm.
have supporters and people that care about me and love me. And I know I'm going to prove, not I don't need to prove to you, but prove to myself why I'm here. And eventually when you keep doing it and when you keep being consistent, I think that's honestly what's been repetitive in my story, consistency, never stopping,
Mm-hmm.
never giving up,
Mm-hmm.
always making sure when things happen that I'm there. People eventually keep seeing you and eventually you're kind of more welcome into that room. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
also means that I haven't waited for a table to be given to me. I've built tables. I've brought
Mm-hmm.
tables in. I've scooted tables over. I've brought my own chairs. Right. And so I think I've really demanded. I started a podcast 7 years ago when nobody was giving me an opportunity on air. Everybody wanted me to be behind the scenes. So I'm not waiting for a table to be set. I'm only getting older. Right. So I created that podcast, invested in it, poured into it, everything that I can,
Mm-hmm.
heart and soul into that podcast. And now it's grown and it has an internship proponent, but it demanded that people listen to me. They saw the guests that I was getting. Right. They saw the
Mm-hmm.
traction it was getting. They saw the mentions it was getting. They saw the support it was getting. And so I could no longer be ignored. And so I think that's the biggest thing too. Find whatever makes you unique, but also don't be afraid to pour into your own pot. Don't be afraid to
Mm-hmm.
invest into your own self, whatever that looks like. Again, and sometimes you have to demand that respect be given. And so again, I think, if I'm, thank you, mom and dad, thank you, Joe and Libby, for everything that and then also, like I said, I think the last thing I'll say too is that, I only knew about Black excellence. I grew up in a
Mm-hmm.
household where it was only Black art in the house. I knew about Black leaders very early on. My parents were big history buffs, and I knew where I came from. I knew where I
Mm-hmm.
came from, and I knew who I was. And so I think that's also been helpful in knowing that, like, nobody can say anything that can deter me from my path. Because again, when you know who you are, you know where you're going, and no one can
Mm-hmm.
off that path. So I think that's also been the biggest thing, is just dedication, determination, discipline to keep on going, making sure I don't have any distractions. But again, also knowing who you are and yourself and the people that you come from, and that only greatness and excellence can come from there. So it's kind of been honestly my journey and my story. Has it been easy? No. I have a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, I'm sitting here smiling now, but there's been times when I've been down. There's times, yes, I've cried. I'm a human being. I have thoughts and emotions and feelings, but I picked myself back up and I kept moving. I kept going along. I didn't stop. And I think that's been the biggest thing, kind of to my success, and hopefully continued success, right? As I continue, because my story's still going. The journey is still going. It's not over. And so I know for every hard time I've had, it's made me a stronger person. It's made me better equipped. And then it's also made me be able to equip people, younger people that I mentor as
Mm-hmm.
well, right? So they know what's happening. So I'm able to share those stories, and those struggles. I was in an article a couple of weeks ago in the Newsette, and they said, I'm part of the 1.1% of Black women reporters that exist in media. And I thought about that. 1.1%. That's
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 well.
crazy, right? Like, that's so small. But I know what I
Mm-hmm.
represent. And I know even the struggles that all of us face as Black women reporters. I've gotten the nasty messages and the tweets and people that think you don't
Mm-hmm.
or don't belong. But you have to remember you have a greater purpose, a greater cause. And again, you're not serving those people, you're serving him. And so whatever he
Mm-hmm.
wants you to do, you keep that. And so I think, especially as a woman of faith, I'm thankful to be here, but it also reminds me of the work I have to do to continue the journey to make sure more people are able to join in. So hopefully that 1.1% continues to increase each and every
To
year.
increase, yeah, that's because that's the important part as well. I mean, I can relate because I've most of my life worked with in male dominated environment as an engineer, and coming as a Black woman
Yeah.
back in 25 years ago, where you come in a room where nobody looks like you, and
Right.
like you said, where they're not expecting to see you, and so you have to find your way. And like you said, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, know where you come from, and really focus on the big picture and on serving, God in that case, but on growing and on pushing yourself to become the best version of yourself, and forgetting about what's going on around, and all the judgment around. So I think Robert is getting crazy in the comment box
He's been
here.
an amazing
Uh,
speaker. Robert is one of the reasons
so
why.
I'm gonna start posting things, so multifaceted, and then very fulfilling, for talking about your day, and thanking your parents, and also sport, is saying sport is therapeutic as well,
Yes.
in a way, and I think I relate to that, because each time I get really annoyed, and not really feeling well, I just go for a run, and then it actually helped me to keep going. So a long list here. So not only you are opening doors, but you are also creating them as well. And that's the important part as well. When you are, trailblazing, you leave that trail, but you have to make sure there are more, people coming, especially for us Black women, open the doors and help and mentor and coach the next generation, but also the old generation, because when I see your generation, how confident you are, and you come, it is teaching me something, because back then we were not that confident, and that's really so we have also Rochelle, yes, Rochelle, thank you for tuning in all the way from Lagos, Nigeria. And we have Patrick from Canada as well. So people are coming. We're going to have a break and we will be back in a few minutes to continue this conversation and getting to know, how you manage to trailblaze and also, create opportunity for, other women and other people simply. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in few minutes.
Tous les souhaits. Qui c'est madame en câlin, même si ça t'a fait la peine. Elle est souffert, moi elle souffert.
So we are back. We are back with Kelsey, and we are in the US today in Washington, D.C. And for those who are joining us, you've actually missed quite a lot of inspiration already, but it's not finished. We are going, the next stage. And just wanted to know, Kelsey, because obviously the media is changing. The media has been changing. When you started, back then, things have changed. What are the big changes and what are the opportunity that you see have opened up for example, for minorities or people, not just, looking at races, but people who didn't have, an opportunity to get into the media before?
Yeah, I've been working, it's crazy. 2024 now marks 10 years of my professional broadcast career. I graduated from University of Maryland back in 2014. And though a decade doesn't seem like it's super long, like you said, a lot has changed, in media. Even now, I teach at George Washington University, and it used to be you declared, a print or broadcast major. But now pretty much every student has to learn how to be multimedia. Because what are you doing now as a reporter? You're writing the story or you're broadcasting the story. You have to tweet or go on X now, right? And put that up. People are following. You have to get pictures, right? So we've learned how to be photographers. We've learned how to be video editors as well as also to tell the story. Like people want to continue. I think also the biggest thing too now is that reporters, personalities, like now you can be your brand. It matters, right? It used to be it was just under who you worked for, but now people want to know you. Who you are, what you're doing. And so I think we've also had to give in more insight, into our lives. I think we know reporters now in a way that we never knew reporters before, right? Like, what their family looks like, right? You know what they do on the weekends when they're not working or following them on their social media platforms. So now I think it's even knowing that people want to know you beyond the story, who you are. They think that's how you that's how you really build your trust and credibility. And, we're at a really crucial time right now, in journalism. That's one of the reasons why I got back into teaching. That's another reason why, one of the boards I serve on is the Washington Association of Black Journalists, because I really want to make sure that journalists are supported and that diversity is celebrated. And I want to say this, I want to make sure that diversity is celebrated and not tolerated. And I think right now, unfortunately, what we're seeing in a way that we didn't see when I was graduating, when I was graduating, people really said they said they wanted diversity. I think what we saw is after the murder of George Floyd, we saw things shift and change. And then all of a sudden, all these media companies and everyone came out and said they embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. But unfortunately, now what we're seeing in the United States is that DEI is what they're calling it, right? Diversity, equity. Now it's become more partisan. And now people are actually pulling away from DEI initiatives because of the attacks that we're seeing. So now programs that we had seen to support that and minority journalists, we're actually seeing funding cut. And when layoffs happen, we're seeing a lot of layoffs happening in media, right? Because right now media companies aren't making the same money that they used to. Advertiser dollars are down because the media industry's changed. Now people are getting from all types of mediums. Like my students, a lot of them get news from TikTok, right? That's the young
Mhm,
generation
mhm, mhm.
going to first. They're going to social media first. They're not just going to the Wall Street Journal first, right? Or the New York Times, the Washington Post, right? They're going to social media. Now, also, I think we've expanded the term journalist. I think we have to be very careful about that. Now, a lot
Mhm.
of people call themselves journalists, but are they actually journalists? Have they done the training?
Exactly.
Right? Did they go to school for it? Did they do the training? Do they know media ethics? Have they said they will abide by the Society of Professional Journalists guidelines? No. And now I think we're in a murky area, where it used to be you knew your journalists, you knew your bloggers. Now
Mhm.
everybody's saying they're journalists, and you have to really do your due diligence and research to really find out who you're following and who you're getting news from. And unfortunately now too, there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation because everybody's putting news out there to be first.
Mhm.
Before it was about being accurate. Now people just want to be seen, right? And so
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it's done the viewer, the listener a disservice, and I think that has really been hurtful. And then again, I think when we're seeing these media layoffs because the advent of I know AI is a big thing now that we're all talking
Mhm.
because people have cut corners. We've seen a lot of media buyouts, and so a lot of veteran
Mhm.
journalists are leaving newsrooms, much different than when I was there. Veteran journalists were staying there. And I think, unfortunately, too, when we see layoffs hitting diverse communities very hard. Unfortunately, I know too many journalists that look like me from the Black and Brown communities that have been laid off by their media organizations, right? And so they're kind of the first ones that have kind of seen, like they're the first ones on the front lines, and they're the first ones that
Mhm.
got fired. And so I think that's just been very unfortunate. Again, I think we entered a world where diversity was championed and praised, and now we're seeing a world where diversity is being seen as a commodity, like, oh, maybe
Mhm.
it's nice to have instead of a necessity. And I think that's a big problem that we're seeing right now in media. So for all the challenges, though, I will say maybe the beauty, because I don't just want to sound like a horror story for media. I think the beauty
Mhm. Mhm.
media had transformed in a way where one now we can conceptualize media so quickly, right? It's on our phones now. It's so quick. And we can literally break news, so quickly. We've seen the rise of citizen journalists. Again, going back to the
Mhm.
George Floyd example. Why we knew about George Floyd was it was a citizen journalist who was on
Yeah.
the ground who was able to actually document that story, an unfortunate story, obviously, in a horrible story. But now we see the power of phones, and now a lot of stuff, and the unfortunate shooting we just had in Kansas City during the Super Bowl parade. A lot of
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. This one.
phones, right? And we were able to see what's happening. And so I think now media is more readily accessible. I think also now there is more media platforms. And so now we like what we're doing, streaming, right? And it's
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
I think after COVID, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen more people actually letting us in to media sites. We've seen more video, right? So I think after COVID, more print sites actually said, hey, we need to do more video. People want to see more what we're doing in the newsroom. And so I think that's kind of been more of a positive where now we're seeing more jobs open in that space, right? Where people need people to do social media, they need people to do video. They're expanding their teams that do, just like public engagement, kind of public awareness site. So I think that's
Mhm.
kind of been the positive. And I think, also, I will say, I think media has also been more involved in the community, just realizing that it's your people why you're strong.
Mhm.
It's your community why you're strong. And so you need to pour back into them. And so I think we've also seen more community events happening in partnership with media organizations. So there's been a lot of good, essentially, is what I'm saying, but there's also been a lot of bad, unfortunately. And so
I mean, it's always the case. I mean, you can't just, everything cannot be just, just bad, and there's always good. And one thing that I think about is, how do you, because it's so crowded now, like you said, how do you how do you create a competitive advantage, and what is it, when we talk about competitive advantage?
I think the biggest thing that you can do, and I think this is why I've been able to build my career, and I like to think this is why people follow and trust me. You have to build, people still want to trust somebody. We still want to
Mm-hmm.
trust somebody. Like we live in a world now where it's harder to trust people because there's so much bad information out there. And so I think for
Mm-hmm.
me, like I want to be a person that's reliable. Like when I go to Kelsey Nicole Nelson, I know when I go to Canon, I know I'm getting the right information. And so I do my due diligence to make sure that whatever I put out there is something that obviously people can verify, they can trust. But also, I like to also be open. So meaning people can directly contact me, send me a message, right? Set up a time to talk with me, on the phone and do a consultation. So I think also that accessibility is huge as well, allowing
Mm-hmm.
question. But again, I think the biggest thing is making sure you get stuff right. I think when you trust a journalist, it's just like any relationship you have, right? I like to think trust is the most important. And when someone breaks that trust, it's hard to get it back. So that's why for me, it's making sure I get it right the first time and making sure that people can believe me the first time. That consistency. You always have to be spewing and putting stuff out there because people want to know what's happening, right? And they come to you. Now, a lot of days, people follow personalities and journalists, sometimes more than they follow actual media organizations, right? Because that's how much they trust that person. And so for me, I take that with great responsibility. That means everything I'm doing, I'm thinking of my viewer. I'm thinking of my listener. And I think that's very, very, very important in terms of how we can kind of break through the noise and how you can really find a lane for yourself and have people learn to trust who you are. And then again, I have to go back to your brand. Think about what you represent. Think about who you are. Once you know that, you can sell that to people, right? And if they relate to your brand, they're going to follow you. If they don't have to follow you because guess what? There's followers where they came from. So one person not liking your brand or following you won't break you. But what makes you you? Like I said, for me, it's I think the trust and credibility that people know that I bring, the expertise. The fact that when I do sports reporting, I have a wide range of knowledge. I studied not sports in college. I have a degree in sports industry management, so I know the business of sport. I studied media, right? I know the media side of sport. I also studied public policy, right? So I know the public policy impacts that impact sports. I also studied African American studies, so I also can talk about the intersection of race and politics and culture into sports. And that's what people know I'm bringing to them, to that table. So that knowledge and that expertise that I'd like to think they know they can't get from somebody else, it's unique to me. And then also I think what helped me honestly break through the crowd is you can have personality, right? I bring myself, I know how to be me. And so I bring that into everything that I do, because the world is a lot. It's a lot happening in the world. And so I like to bring people some, good news, some calm and some peace. But also when I have to talk about the difficult topics, they know there's a reason for it, right? And that I'm not afraid to have those difficult conversations. So again, people know they can trust me to bring whatever it is. I'm going to bring it to them, right? Whether it's good or bad. But I'm also going to be the version of me when I bring it to them. So I think that's how you do it.
Yeah, and it's important to continue to learn. And like you said, you had to, get skills in different areas so that you can integrate that to be, to bring this credibility and to have a brand that someone, people trust. Right. And sometimes we forget about this part. People have, done journalism, but they don't really want to know what's going on in other part of industry or other part of community that they want to serve, and they fall short in terms of really reaching out to the right people. So that's very important. So we're gonna have another break, and I see the room is getting crowded. We have Mo who is here. Credibility is so important. Yes, it is, and again, Robert, all aspects of life are entertaining sports. So definitely, and that's really what, Kelsey was saying, is that, you have to look at all the different aspects and really bring it all together before you can, convey the news. So thank you. So we will have a short break and we'll be back with Kelsey on the Greatness Engineering show. I hope you are enjoying it. There's a lot, being shared. And there's a lot. She has a lot of energy as well. So, don't go anywhere. We will be back soon. It's actually the result of a long journey in the oil and gas industry, working worldwide. And so I've been in this industry for 20 years. And like Deborah was saying, there's a big significance in the 20 years because I got in this industry because I lost my dad. And at some point I just had to stop going to school. I had my bachelor. I stopped because I had to find a job, and then I got into the industry. But I managed to discover the industry and really like it. So this book is really represent a lot for me. I dedicated it to my dad actually, and also really putting together all that I've learned working in the industry as well. So through this journey, what I really realized is that when you really want something, you have to go and get it. And going and get it doesn't mean just sit down, have the idea. It's also just put a plan, implement it. Really have to start going and inform the young generation that there are opportunities, and they should actually try to embrace some of those technical career in the oil and gas industry, and that's something that needs still to be done and strategized and start really at a very young age, because the industry is growing in Africa, so we will need the workforce, and it's So we are back. We are back with Kelsey, and as you could see, my journey was also one of a difficult one. But you always find the light at the end of the tunnel. You have to keep going, believing in yourself, and keep pushing, keep learning, and really, wanting to go to get and unleash your greatness. So, thank you again for watching. And so, Kelsey, just wanted to know. I mean, when you see, what you've accomplished, when you see how the world have changed, especially in the media industry in the US. What message would you send to the new generation, for someone who wants to actually emulate what you've done, or simply get involved in the industry and do well?
Yeah, and I love that you asked this, because I feel like sometimes media gets such a negative connotation. There's nowhere else I'd rather work. I love what I do. I'm thankful and I'm grateful for what I do. No day is the same. I'm always meeting new people. I'm always traveling. And, a message I would say is a message I learned when I was young. I remember when I was younger, they would always call us at-risk youth. And I remember a message that one of my counselors told me. And when people call you at risk, and when people say the media industry is at risk, turn it around and say you're at risk of greatness. And it goes through I remember being told that as a child. And so every time someone call you at risk, I'm at risk of greatness. And I think that's what the media industry is. I think that's what we are as people. It just matters and you can control what you can control. So how are you going to get to that greatness? I think what I would tell young people is make a plan. Make a plan. Very often in life, everyone says we all have dreams, right? And everyone says, what's your dream? What do you want to be? But no one tells you that you have to have a plan for that dream. No one tells you in life when you're younger that you're going to have to maybe pivot and things are going to go as planned. And so I think for me, having a plan, knowing how to pivot, and knowing that there's different ways to accomplish and get to my dream is a beautiful thing. And I think also know that the media industry is always evolving. And you can be part of that evolvement. But you said it earlier, you always have to be learning. I'm a lifelong learner. I learn something new every day. Every single day I learned something new. Like yesterday, I was at an event and I just learned that Delaware State produces the most pilots of color in the country. I learned that at an event last night. I always want to learn something new. So always be a learner, never be too proud. And I think the biggest thing too, I think for younger people, but anybody is, my biggest thing to myself is always be humble. Always be. You can be knocked off at any time. I'm so grateful for what I'm doing, but again, you can be knocked off at any time. So be humble in everything that you do. Be good to people, be kind to people. You never know when someone's going to come back into your life. And you should just be good to people anyways, right? Because you should be a good person in general. But, you never know who's watching. You never know who you can inspire. I spoke at a kids camp for the Rotary Club International this weekend. It's Friday because I'm still getting messages from these kids about how what I said to them resonated with them and how they're now acting upon their dreams. And so I think that's the other thing about media. It's not just what you can take from media, but what can you pour back? And so for me, what I've decided to pour back into is young people. It's young people. Believe me, there's some mornings that I'm waking up at 8 a.m. or really at 5 a.m. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. But I know the job I need to do. And I know the young people that sit in that classroom that I have to inspire. the camp this weekend, right? I had to turn down going to Indianapolis, but I wanted to talk to those young people. I knew my message would resonate. I thought about all the people that would talk to me. So also don't just think, again, what you can take from the media industry, but how can you pour back? I love editing now, young people's work. I love hearing their ideas. I love letting them know what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to launch your own media and business brand, right? So also that teaching aspect, I think is super important. I think media needs you now. We need diverse voices. So please don't let some of the crazy stories, scare you away. Think about what you represent. When I first entered, I didn't see enough people that looked like me on camera. I was news with my parents. And, like most people, I loved Oprah. And, I always kind of wanted to be the sports version of Oprah, when I was growing up, in terms of just, owning and dominating my lane. But there wasn't enough melanin on my TV screen. There wasn't enough women shaped like me on my TV screen. And so, it's what can you do? And I'm very solutions based. I see a problem. How do I solve that problem? And so to me, it was to enter that industry, to change that industry, right? So also, like I said, when I say don't just take from media, I'm active in the National Press Club. I'm a member of that. I'm active in Society of Professional Journalists. I sit on the sports committee. Why I do that, it's not because I just have all this time. I'm busy, but I make time. But it's because I need to be pouring back into the industry to make it a better place than when I entered it. And so know that there's people advocating for you. There's people working on your behalf, but we also need your help, right? We can't do it alone. And media industry is a big thing to try to change for just a couple of people. And so I think, there's power and togetherness. Know there's people supporting you, and that there's a beauty when we do it all together. And so I think, but like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love that I don't just have to sit at a desk all day. I love that I can move around. I really have control of my schedule because I freelance. I can work for a lot of different people and do a lot of different things. And so I think if you're a person that just never kind of wanted just a job where you have to just, be something that other people want you to do, I think media is a really great entity where you can really make it your own. And make it into something beautiful that hopefully you'll enjoy for your life. Like for me, I always will be part of the media industry for as long as I live. My roles in it might change, right? Like when I'm 78, Morale, I don't know if I'm going to want to be on the sidelines,
You still have time to think about it.
But it's a beautiful place. Come join us and know we need you. We need all stories told. But we need people that we can trust to be the messengers of those stories. And so if you feel like you're a person that wants to do things the right way, that's going to do things accurately, but also be timely with news and know the responsibility you carry as a journalist, I'd say this is the industry to enter, and this is the industry for you.
Fantastic. I hope you've listened. You've got your pen going crazy because there's a lot today. And we have She Exists in the house. So hello, Janelle. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. And Robert has been amazing. We definitely need diversity in media. We must be able to share our narrative to hear other perspective as well. So that's fantastic. So unfortunately, we're getting ready to the end. And one thing that I want to ask you, Kelsey, when are you coming to Australia?
Look, as soon as they call to book me, I will be on the plane. So look, my contact, and I've never been there. It's funny. It's funny I met you and see how things. I don't think anything happens by accident. And I always tell people, like, I've always wanted to go to Australia. And sure enough, I haven't been there yet, but I've met you, and hopefully this will spur a trip to Australia because I think there's so much history and culture there, and I would love to be part of the media thread there. So whenever they give me a ring, I will be on the next plane. I will be on the next plane.
We'll make this happen. So just want to know as well how people can connect with you if they want, obviously, to continue this conversation or just, get to know you better and see what you're doing or collaborate. I don't know. There's always, opportunities all over the place. So how do people connect with you?
Yeah, so it's super easy. My website is just KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Just visit that. There's a contact button. You fill it out. It goes right to me. I don't have anybody that answers my stuff. It's me. I promise you. So you'll hear directly back from me. You can also follow me on social media at The Real K Nelson. I'm on all social media platforms. And of course, Facebook and LinkedIn. It's just Kelsey Nicole Nelson. But please connect with me. I love talking to people. If you guys can't tell already, I like to bring positive vibes, positive energy into spaces with people because we need more of that. I want to learn from you. So please, please, please connect. Also, check out my podcast, Listen In with knn.com. We have a lot of great shows coming up. We just had Tamika Foster Raymond, a fashion stylist, and Black woman who's honestly doing the thing. So, lots of great stories, that we tell. So, would love to connect. And even students, if there's any questions you have, I'm always answering emails from young people. Please reach out to me directly because I want to be a resource for you, and know I'm part of that village that will always be behind you. So thanks again so much. This was such a fantastic show to be part of.
The fantastic, and I can see Robert is interested as well because he heard that Australia is a beautiful place.
We can
It
be on
is
the
a
same
beautiful
plane,
place.
Robert.
It is massive, and so you can join us as well. You can join her as well, Robert, when she comes in. So no worries, like we say here in Australia. So before we leave, there's always a question that I love, asking my guests is, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing fantastic well, and really, impacting, your community, impacting the world. So, what is the legacy that you want to leave?
Oh my gosh. So this takes me back to my high school yearbook quote. And my high school yearbook quote, you know how you have to put a quote under your picture? It was, what we do in life echoes in eternity. I'm a quotes person. I love quotes. So what we do in life echoes in eternity. And what that means is from a young age, I was always fueled by the legacy I wanted to leave. Everything I do is intentional because I think about the next day is not promised. And so I'm always thinking about what legacy can I leave? And honestly, I want my legacy to be simple. She did things her way. She loved people and she gave back. She did things her way. She loved people and she gave back. I want people to hopefully be inspired by my story to know that it's okay to not be placed in a box. What I tell young people is, why when people ask you, what do you want to be? Why do people expect one word answers? A teacher, a doctor. Why can't I say I want to be an astronaut? I want to be a journalist. I want to be a business owner. Right? I think that's the biggest thing. I hope people see that from my legacy that, you can do multiple things and you can do multiple things well. I also want people to remember I do things unapologetically me. So again, I own being a Black woman. I love being a Black woman in this space. And I love what that represents. And so I hope people also know that, that makes me proud. But then also I hope I brought joy to people by giving back. Hopefully people remember like she brought joy and she spent a lot of time just giving back and pouring back. And not just young people, but I think also something needs to be mentioned is also learning from our elders. So she also, was never too proud to learn, and hear from the veterans and the elders of the world because she knew she could always be better. So I think that's the thing. And hopefully, lastly, people just remember my work ethic. I always say, like, I think my work ethic is just, I honestly, I only know how to work hard. I only know. And so I hope people remember that, like, Kelsey was always working hard, but it was for a fulfilling purpose. So hopefully that will be the lasting legacy of KNN.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I can see here Robert saying, you're already fulfilling your quotes. So which is, a key thing. And thanks for, enjoying the show. That's I definitely like the energy that Kelsey brought here, which is really amazing, and I can feel it, even if I'm not sitting next to her, I can feel the energy. And I'm really, really happy, to have been able to host you. So that's the end for us today. Not a problem. And for us, it's we're gonna connect definitely, and see how things are going. And I just want to reemphasize here, listening to you, that my motto is don't leave anything on the table of life. You always have an opportunity to keep going. As every morning when you wake up, there is something that you can grab and something that you can better. So don't leave anything on the table of life. So we're going to leave this platform on this particular quote. And I want to thank all the audience today, particularly Robert. You're gonna have I have to send you a star for today, because it has been amazing to really to have you, and also participating to the to this particular show. So thank you very much. I will be back tomorrow for me, but evening time for the audience in the US for another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And we're still going to talk about sports. So that's going to be an important one as well, to see a different perspective from a male's perspective this time. So thank you again. Thank you for your time, Kelsey, and all the very best for everything that you are doing. And
positive vibes and energy. I can't wait to see what you continue to manifest.
Fantastic. So thank you. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.